The Mandalorian and Grogu officially releases on May 22, 2026, meaning it will have been a staggering 7 years since Star Wars was last on the big screen. Star Wars has always been a transmedia franchise. The first tie-in novel, Alan Dean Foster's Splinter of the Mind's Eye, came out just a year after the first movie, but it's mostly known for big-screen blockbusters. That was where the Skywalker saga began, and there's just something special about hearing that iconic John Williams anthem trumpet in the darkened auditorium. Lucasfilm has finally confirmed the release date of The Mandalorian and Grogu, the next Star Wars movie. Pedro Pascal's Din Djarin and his delightful ward Grogu will be heading to the big screen on May 22, 2026, blazing the trail for a range of upcoming Star Wars movies, films as diverse as a new Jedi Order project and another project about the dawn of the Jedi. But, staggeringly, it will have been 7 years since Star Wars had a new release in theaters. What's gone wrong? The box office failure of Solo shelved the anthology projects. Solo proved even Star Wars wasn't too big to fail. This wasn't the plan, of course. When Disney bought Lucasfilm and Star Wars, back in 2012, the plan was to build a conveyor belt of movies, with bosses dreaming of at least an annual release. Lucasfilm initially signed up to alternating films in the sequel trilogy and anthology movies set at different parts in the timeline. There were huge teething problems, but the first few movies were successes. And then came Solo, a Star Wars story, Star Wars' first box office bomb. It grossed just $393 million, even worse given expensive reshoots. There's a sense in which Solo's failure was inevitable. There was never a convincing idea behind it. Disney actually greenlit the entire movie just because of a pitch about how Han got his name. The movie was beset with behind-the-scenes drama, with Ron Howard brought in for Solo's reshoots after Phil Lord and Christopher Miller left under a cloud. Worst of all, Disney assumed a Star Wars film was a guaranteed success, and prioritized the marketing of Avengers: Infinity War. Solo's trailer dropped in February 2018, just 3 months before the movie's release. Disney paid a price for such poor marketing. This was where the problems began. Lucasfilm seemed to lose confidence in their plans after Solo's failure, and the entire anthology's project was shelved. Several film pitches evolved into Disney Plus TV shows. Suddenly, Disney realized it was actually possible for a Star Wars movie to fail, and the shock had an almost paralyzing effect. The Rise of Skywalker was far from an unqualified success. The sequel trilogy ended on a divisive note. The collapse of the Star Wars anthologies project would have been bad enough, but the sequel trilogy hit problems too. Star Wars: The Last Jedi was a box office success. It grossed an impressive $1.33 billion worldwide, but it divided the fanbase. Lucasfilm pivoted hard with Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, ultimately bringing back J.J. Abrams to wrap up the sequels. But even this didn't work, because he overplayed the nostalgia card, and the sequels ended on what is almost universally seen as a low note. What to do next? This was the big question, and there was no satisfying answer. The sequels had ended with a whimper, not a bang, while the anthologies were deemed to have failed. The future of Star Wars looked very bleak indeed, and Disney CEO Bob Iger announced Star Wars was taking a break, fearing it had become oversaturated. Meanwhile, Disney execs were pressuring Lucasfilm to focus on something else entirely.